Now from here, all I need to do is a tiny bit of pressure moving in with my ear. Today we're going to cover how to skyrocket your submission, specifically with chokes. And really what this is a lesson on this principle of connection and alignment. So a lot of times people talk about connection. This is actually a very often used and often misunderstood or only partially understood concept. And it really makes the difference between not only making a technique effective, but also optimally efficient. And as the great Hickson Gracie said, a lot of times even what's taught as proper technique is based on a partial connection. What we're always looking for is the full connection. And that often is what we term invisible, or as my friend Henry Aiken says, hidden jiu-jitsu, meaning it's often felt, or it's felt, but it's not often seen. So I want to dig into that a little bit, because sometimes people feel that this is just some sort of a pseudoscientific concept, but it's actually based in physical principles. And we're really just, again, looking for what is the best mechanical way to execute a technique to get the maximum result with a minimum of effort. So in terms of connection, there's actually a few different types. I'm not going to go specifically into all those because that would make this too long. But what I want to do is just give a couple examples or a few examples using chokes, and specifically talk about eliminating mechanical inefficiency. And so that's going to come down to three primary criteria. Number one is proper alignment, meaning we don't want to be aligned in relationship to our opponent, or in this case with a submission, to the neck itself in any way other than is the minimal effort required to get the submission, right? Otherwise it's just wasting energy. Number two, directly related to that, is we want to make sure that we're using our strongest movers, our strongest muscle groups, to produce maximum leverage. So again, we can have the minimum of effort required. And number three, we're going to be taking out all of the slack. So there's no slippage in the movement, which again relates directly to the principle of mechanical inefficiency. So these are all ways to not only make a technique at least as effective as it would be otherwise, often how things are taught as proper technique. You can go the extra mile now, make it at least as effective, but for sure, absolutely more efficient. So let's take a look. All right, so I'm here with my training partner, Steve, and first thing is alignment. So I'm doing a closed guard guillotine. I want to make sure that I'm not just right now using my forearm against the neck, but I'm actually putting this groove right directly underneath, right? What's often referred to as a chin strap position. So right here. And what I want you to watch is, even if I have that alignment on the neck, once I lock my legs, okay, this is just a standard guillotine with no arm in. Once I lock my legs, here would be a before. I want you to see how much time it takes for Steve to submit to this. Okay, so not bad, certainly can work, but a little bit undesirable in terms of maximizing my efficiency. Okay, so now we're going to get that exact same placement, lock it up again, and let's look at how it looks, or let's see how it looks. Okay, now from here, so difference, yes, right? One, basically no movement whatsoever because of the connection. What were the keys there? Number one, my elbows were flared and my forearms were flaring into him, so I wasn't pulling back here, creating slack, taking out all the slack. Say, how can you do that when he's on top of you? There's always a little bit of slack you can take out. Second thing is I created a limit on his body by biting with my legs. My legs, my glutes, my hamstrings, my back, all my primary movers, creating a limit so his body can't move with me when I apply that tiny bit of wrist roll there and tiny bit of hip extension. Now instead of a motion that takes this much to create the submission, it's barely perceptible. All right, next let's look at a blood choke, an arm triangle from mount. So from here, very common way to do this. I get my position here, arm up over the head. And now once I've secured my grip and I'm taking out all the excess right here, then I will make my dismount to the side and start to walk around. Again, not bad, certainly can work. We've seen it work at the highest levels. But now let's look again. Okay, good? All right. And that was the submission, okay? So a couple things here. Why, if we're talking about a blood choke, do we do anything more than is necessary to cut off the blood flow right at the point of the arteries? Anything else is extraneous. The other thing is if you dismount, all the primary escapes from this position take place. There's really only one reliable defense from mount bottom when you maintain the mount, but all the primary defenses come into play once you dismount. So why dismount if you don't have to? So you'll notice that what I'm getting is the bicep connection on one side. Make sure I'm actually touching the artery. On the other side, as we spin around, I want to be directly aligned with the artery on this side. And obviously Steve's going to be choking on his own shoulder. So often what happens is people, if they try to do this from the mount position, they are simply too high. Okay, whatever grip scheme you're using here, or no grip, but people are too high. So right now you feel that by virtue of my head position, Steve, it's more smashing your face, yes? Okay, so from here, I back everything up so I have alignment. Upper arm directly over the forearm, bicep in one side of the neck. And then from here, look at the adjustment I make from here with my ear. This hand is also out for base and to provide a little bit of structure to the side. Now all I need to do is a tiny bit of pressure moving in with my ear, and there's the submission. Now let's take one from the gi. This is going to be a bow and arrow choke from the back. Again, let's look at it before and after. So the first one, see how long it takes for Steve to submit once I've got my grips. Okay, so that was one. Obviously, if I did that faster, it would look like it came on much quicker. But I'm going slow to see how much movement is actually required. Now let's take a look at this again with some adjustments, okay? Ready? All right. Okay, so much less, right?
Yes.
Let's look at what's going on there mechanically. So alignment, first of all, notice how this part of my hand is directly matching his artery on this side. So he's being choked with the gi here. Yes, I'm making a lever, but if I put 2 fingers in instead of 4, I'm now aligning everything properly, as opposed to 4 fingers, which actually moves the position of my hand and wrist and actually creates a pocket of space, so it takes more motion for me to go against the artery. First principles here is go directly to what it is that we're trying to apply the force to, which is the artery itself. This hand here is just to take out slack and control his movement in both directions. A lot of times from here, when we don't have this is why people wind up reaching down here for the leg. Not that that's wrong, but again, it requires more transition time, more movement, when I can just go from here. Now everything from here is about connection. So once I've connected with my big movers, again, creating a limit on Steve's body, I'm just gonna relax my arm. I'm not doing anything with my choking arm, my right arm right now, aside from looking behind my shoulder and retracting my shoulder. Okay? And then the tap is on. So now the thing is, we don't want to be limited to any particular set of submissions. That was just 3 examples for the chokes. But what we want to do is make sure that we're embodying All right, so hope that's helpful, but we don't want to be limited to just these 3 techniques, these 3 chokes that I showed. What we want to be doing is understanding the core underlying principles and applying it everywhere. Hope that helps.